Hey everyone, welcome to Koopa Kast number 76, 30 Years of Mario. I'm your host, and Matt, oh wait, no, that's another thing. I'm your host, Matt, the multimedia manager of PNM and PureNintendo.com, your independent source for all things Nintendo. Joining me are three other panelists, Justin Sharp, our editor-in-chief.
Hey everyone.
Alex Schramke, our writer.
Hey everybody.
Trevor Gould, our other writer.
Thanks for tuning in, folks.
And like I said, we're talking about Mario, all 30 years of it. We're going to be talking about memories of Mario, like, what's your first game you played, the ups, the downs, and what direction Mario is headed today. So, as a good kind of semi-introduction, this is like an old school Koopa Cast thing. We used to introduce ourselves when James would ask us a question, and we introduce ourselves. So I'm going to ask you guys, what's your favorite, or what's the first Mario game you've ever played?
I guess the original one. Can't think of if I played 3 first or not. Pretty sure it was the original one though.
Did you beat it?
Not right off. I was born in '86, so I was still fairly young. When I first played it, I was probably 4 or 5 or something. I don't recall beating it until I was a little older.
All right. Trevor.
Yeah, it was the first one for me, and I'll date myself a little bit, but I think it was 1989 when I played it. It came with Duck Hunt, and I think we picked up like Pinball and a couple other games. But I was a child, and I did not beat it. I don't think until All Stars came out, and you could save. But that's a tough game. I still think in a lot of ways the original is tougher than even the follow-up 2D Mario's. But that was my first one, and it's good memories with it, good times. Yeah.
All right, Alex.
See, I'm trying to think here. For the first Mario I played, it's either Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World. I can't remember exactly because our family owned the Super Nintendo, but then I would go over to my cousin's house and then we'd stay up all night playing Super Mario Brothers 3. So it's one of those. It's a tie. I can't remember. I was little. I don't think we beat either of them. At least not legitimately. I do remember using a bunch of Game Genie codes for Mario Brothers 3, and we would get to the end of Mario Brothers 3, and then like the game would like freeze at the end, so it wouldn't let you see the ending. So Bowser would be defeated in the door, but then like you couldn't go through the door. It was really bizarre. I remember being freaked out by that as a kid for some reason.
Was that like a moral lesson to you as a kid? You're like, oh, cheaters never win.
Exactly. That's the lesson right there. That's why I'm a straight shooter nowadays. No Game Genie.
All right.
I forgot about Game Genie.
And I guess I have to answer my own question. So, Super Mario Brothers 3 was the first one I played. It was also the first one I beat. And I used to be able to beat it several times. Like, cause I remember, like, I beat it to the point, I can do it to the point where I would beat it just so I could play it again with, like, if you beat it, you get, like, all the P-Wing slots, or all your little pockets are full with P-Wings.
Mm-hmm.
So you could play through, like, almost every level in the game with just the P-Wing and just fly through everything.
Yeah.
So I would just beat the game just to do that.
It's your victory lap through the world.
It pretty much was, because it was get the 2, beat Bowser, and then do the P-Wings.
You could just, use Game Genie and put them in there. I could do that too. I don't have to beat it.
Yeah.
It sounds like the game froze before you could beat it.
No, but I could put all the P-Wings in there and just, do the same thing.
Yeah, but I could do it the real way.
Today's kids are watching and they're like, "What's Game Genie?" Nobody's gonna know what that is.
They really don't even have like cheat codes in general nowadays. I mean, like Game Shark was through the '90s, I think.
Even Action Replay now is kind of. I think there's one for the 3DS, but really the only reason why you'd buy that is like to hack in Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's like the only reason you buy an action replay.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of many uses for cheat codes nowadays.
Yeah.
Sigh.
Yeah.
It's funny
That
though,
was-
Matt. You're talking about wanting to run through with all P-wings, and yet today, like with the new games, where you can get like the White Raccoon and buzz through, and today we're like, oh, we don't want to go anywhere near that. You know, we want to we want to do it legit, but
Yeah, for me, that's the worst feature of the Mario game is when that little box comes up and says, "Hey, you obviously suck at this game. Guide." And
I was playing 2 on the 3DS the other night, and that came up, and I was so I just felt like such a loser. I'm like, no, I don't even like it
feels like the
offered.
game's judging you.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and I mean, I'm glad it's there for people who want to use it because I think that's a cool feature. But yeah, it just really, it's kind of a polite way of being like, yeah, you know, you're not very good.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your badge for trying.
I kind of like it. It kind of spurs me on, you know? Like, I use it as fuel. Like, all right, I know I stink, but I'm going to get
It's like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I had that pop up a bunch in Star Road and New Super Luigi U. I finished that a few months back. I was re-going through it, and I was like, you know what? I never 100%ed Super Luigi U, so... And there were a couple levels there that thing was reminding me several times. I'd start the level, and it's like, you should use this. Or,
it kind of reminds me of it's like the equivalent of the older sibling who you would have to like call over to hand off the controller to.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't beat this. Can you beat this for me?
Yeah.
Weird.
Exactly.
So would we all agree that that's the worst feature in the Mario series so far, or is it? Like
Oh no, I don't think it's bad. I just personally, it makes me feel bad. But just in terms of a feature, I think it's great. You know, especially for younger people who haven't quite developed like platforming skills, they're not locked out from seeing the entire game. So in that sense, I think it's a great feature. Personally, it just really makes me feel, you know, like I'm not very skilled. So I have a love-hate feeling of it.
They should be able to turn that option off. Like, and when you
Yeah, I
start
was
the
gonna
game,
say that.
like file start, do you want to turn the super guide on or off? You hit off, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a very minor annoyance for me, honestly. Like it. I mean, sure, it's like, yes, I know, you know, it keeps reminding you, but I don't know. To me, it's something that I wouldn't do, but hey, it's there if someone does need it. But it's not inhibiting me in any way.
All right. So my question is then, if that's not the worst feature in a Mario, like that they put into a Mario game, what is the worst feature that they have put into a Mario game?
That is a good question, though, is it?
Yeah. That's a good question. There's critics I'm sure all over the board, but I mean you could say that Mario Brothers 2, you know, pulling up the turnips and you know was slowed down the gameplay and changed the gameplay more than people wanted. But I mean, nowadays I think it's kind of unique and it's an interesting Mario game to play, and the turnip mechanic is. It's kind of silly, you're like, pull these turnips up. It kind of slows down the platforming, but it's fun diversion.
I'll tell you what I didn't like. In Super Mario World, why couldn't I take Yoshi with me in the Bowser's Castle? That made me mad. I was like, he's my buddy. I've been trying to keep him alive all this time. And then he's just going to abandon me because he's scared? Like, come on, man. But there's that one ghost level that he'll go into, the ghost ship, because it's different. That's the only ghost level you can take him in. But any other ghost level or castle, you always like jump off of him then enter. And as a little kid, I was like obsessed with Yoshi because I thought he was so awesome. I was like, no, Yoshi, come with me. Why are you leaving me?
Yeah, I never noticed that.
I can't think of like a feature per se. But I'll just say because I've been playing them through this past week in preparation for Mario Maker, and while the early games I think are the clear winners in terms of like imagination and level design, the new games, the mechanics are so much tighter. I think like and expanded too with like butt pounding, wall kicking, Like if I go from playing a new Super Mario game and go back and play the original, like the movement feels slightly off, like the hit detection seems a little different. It's just, it doesn't have that tight responsive feeling that I think Nintendo's mastered. I'd like to see them go back to, to the more creative aspects, but in terms of control, I think the new games have aced that, so I guess that's more of a, just how the series has grown, I guess. It's not really so much a bad feature, because they were all great for their time. Yeah, I can't really think of a bad feature.
Let's see.
I know Matt's going to say blue coins in Sunshine.
No, I wasn't, but then because I didn't think about it. But you're right. The blue coins were the worst. I like to thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, why did I do it?
Because that's such a cop-out.
No, that pinball level
The pachinko
was
machine?
terrible.
Yep.
Super Mario Sunshine, the big plinko board, or whatever it was.
Yeah, pachinko?
Pachinko, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I'm thinking The Price is Right.
Yeah, I think yeah. I was thinking.
That was such a... Oh, that level was infuriating.
Yeah.
And
You know
I
what?
enjoyed
I'm not gonna say the blue coins in Sunshine. I'm gonna say the Yoshi in Sunshine was the worst feature in any Mario game. Because that Yoshi was useless. What did he do? He didn't offer you any extra movement that Mario couldn't already do with his flood pack. And he could like barf on like the yellow spongy stuff. That's what it was. Don't sugarcoat it. Nobody sugarcoat it.
But how does he compare to Yoshi in Mario 64, Matt?
Yeah.
He gives
Oh
you
yeah,
100
that was
lives.
like...
He gives you 100 lives. And a cool
Yeah, but
little
you've already
flippy jump.
beaten the game. It's like,
You
what's
might
the
not
point?
even... The casual player might not even know Yoshi's up on the roof. He's such a... It's a throwaway feature. At least in Sunshine, you get to control him and play as him. I mean,
Well,
I
I'd
take
argue
your
that-
point.
I'd argue that the Yoshi in 64 was an Easter egg and not a feature.
Yeah.
A feature is something that you could take into the game like throughout the entire experience, or at least most of the experience.
Oh, now we're getting technical.
Yeah. And like the
Webster's
Yoshi
Dictionary.
was a core feature in Sunshine, but he was awful. And
But he
yeah,
was cute. He was so happy.
he
and
was
awesome.
until he touched water, and then he just disintegrated out from under you, and then he had to go find the specific fruit that he wanted.
hmm
And
But you know what redeems him? You can wipe away all that stuff. This is the fact that when you wrote on him, he would add extra beat to the music. That there is like, it redeems it, in my opinion.
but he did that in
It's
Super
awesome. Here's
Mario.
the extra beat to the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But that was awesome, so they brought it back.
Yeah,
I think just the fact that he was in the game, I mean, he was a big loss in the original. I think the fact that he's brought back in a playable form, even if it's not a perfect way, is ample compensation for not being around in the prior adventure.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You go from playing Super Mario World, where Yoshi's like, this key new figure, and then you jump to 64 and there's no Yoshi. It felt like a step backwards.
But
And
then you got
Sunshine corrected that.
no Super Mario World 2 corrected that, where you played as Yoshi with Baby Mario.
Yeah, but is that a Mario proper, or is Yoshi's Island like its own thing?
It says Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. It says it right on the box.
Only
Yeah,
in
but
the
who
U.S.
really-
release, not overseas.
I like the
We're gonna classify it as.
It doesn't say that in every region.
We need to get Miyamoto on the phone.
It doesn't.
No! Miyamoto said in an interview that it is a proper Mario game.
One of the
Well, he's
viewers
wrong
who's
too,
watching
Doctor.
this, look up and see which regions actually say Super Mario 2 and which don't.
No, it doesn't matter. Miyamoto said it was a proper Mario game.
Yeah, they can
all arguments
change.
are moot.
He said the Koopa kids were Bowser's kids, and then he said they weren't. I mean, he can change his mind.
Yeah.
He can. That's true.
Well, until he changes his mind, I'm right.
And tomorrow he's apparently reviewing
Until we get a
Super
Super Mario Historia book. Until we get a Super Mario Historia book, it's not canon.
What, Yoshi's Island?
No, yeah.
Oh, it's so canon.
It's a spin-off title.
But I'm off on so many tangents already.
I can't stop laughing.
The point I was trying to make was that what Yoshi is good in a 3D environment, and Galaxy 2 put Yoshi back in proper. Because
Yeah.
not only was he in there, but he felt like an expanded moveset.
Yeah.
He had like little special peppers that enhanced the gameplay. Like that was a 3D Yoshi done right, and it was unique to Galaxy.
Yeah.
Sunshine could have done that. They could have made the Yoshi not dissolve in water. They could have given him an extra flutter jump or something like that. They could have added something more that made Yoshi like a more worthwhile experience. Like I always dreaded a Yoshi level in Sunshine, but I always look forward to like a Yoshi level in any other game.
Well,
It's
7,
all-
8 years of experience too to fine tune that, and
Mhm.
you know, that's a sizable gap. You know, new platform.
Yeah, but that doesn't make the Yoshi in Sunshine any less of a bad feature in Sunshine.
Oh no, I just think looking at it in the context of when it was released, you know, and I think it's like we talked about with 64 too. The camera on that's horrendous, but at the time it was groundbreaking. I feel like your arguments with Yoshi maybe are kind of, you know, kind of similar. But I'm speaking as a Sunshine fan, and I know you're not as fond of it as I am. So
No, I am not as fun. Least favorite Mario game.
I was so glad that Kaylin also voted for Sunshine in our top 3, so I wasn't the only one. I looked through everybody's list and like, who else voted for Sunshine? And I think she had it in her number 3 as well. So
It's a fun game. I think I have more love for the handheld Marios, but that's just because I'm more of a handheld gamer myself. So those don't get nearly enough love.
Yeah, that's interesting. I forgot about the Super Mario Land games.
Yeah, Super Mario Land, 6 Golden Coins, the sequel. That's the first time we got to see Wario.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's a great game.
Yeah, did you guys remember the sound effects and music in the first Super Mario Land? Like,
Yeah.
you know those little like jumping, flying things that you encounter early on, like or in the desert level or something. Like you jump on
You
them and you
squash them. And just go to,
like, kick them or something, and like it creates this like, you know, like
yeah.
this crazy sound.
Then you jump on a Koopa, and the Koopa explodes because it's a bomb.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like weird stuff in there. Like when you hit the bosses with a fireball, it would make like this weird like noise.
But
Dude, that's just a bizarre game.
I love that you could fly in that game. Like they had the little, didn't they have like a submarine? I know they had like a spaceship.
Yeah, they had a submarine, and
Submarine,
a biplane.
airplane, yeah.
That was so cool. Sorry, I'm thinking of cool features.
No, that's fine. I mean, that
I love-
biplane was way cooler than Yoshi and Sunshine.
Well, Land had original settings too. Like, what was this? It started with an S. Saraland. or something like that.
Dashrahala.
Yeah.
But it had
That
like
was
the,
the guy
had like the
who was
Egyptian
like-
like hieroglyphics like on the wall, and a
Yeah.
lot of those weird enemies that they look like Koopas, but they weren't. They blew up, or you know. I
Yeah.
think they had a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
I
It
love
was
the
super
music in
unique.
that game. Like it's probably like the weirdest like soundtrack out of all the Mario games.
Yeah.
But like it's so awesome.
Yeah, I like
Especially-
the.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or-
so don't ask
The
me how I
spaceship level.
found out. Don't ask me how I could spell it, but it is Sarasala Land.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ah.
I just started throwing it S's and A's into Google, and it found it.
Thanks, Google.
You know, it's
Yeah.
funny that kind of sounds like an anagram of the guy in Link to the Past that you find in the.
Sashrahala.
Yeah, stress. Yeah.
So, as we pronounce
I wonder if their names are connected at all.
Sarasalaha is from Sarasala Land.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're speaking in tongues here.
Yeah.
That's a good tongue twister.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that was a fun one. That is definitely a unique Mario game.
So what is the most unique Mario game then?
I would say that is a very unique one. It kind of reminds me of Link's Awakening, actually. Like, it's interesting. The first Zelda game on the Game Boy is a very different Zelda game, you know.
Totally
It's
the
so much
best
fun.
one.
And
But
the
yes.
same
It's
thing
the
with
best.
Mario Land is very different, you know. I mean, it's still platforming, but I don't know. It's like they took the limitations of the hardware and they're like, okay, let's just try and do something crazy, so that way there's no resemblance to anything on the consoles. It's just completely new, you know.
Yeah. My vote would go for that or Super Mario Brothers 2. But Super Mario Brothers 2 might be like a shoehorn because it was
That was Doki
originally
Doki
Doki Panic.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Although It's interesting that for years, people kind of viewed that as it wasn't a proper Mario game, and I think it was recently, maybe only like 2-3 years ago, where Miyamoto actually said it was originally conceived like as a Mario sequel, but then they decided they wanted to stick with what worked, and they did Lost Levels. Then when they found out that was too hard, they kind of flipped back. It kind of I should have looked up the quote in preparation for the podcast.
Well,
come to find out years later, it actually was conceived as Mario before it took on the Doki Panic license or whatever, to then flip back to Mario.
Well,
does that ring a bell? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, no, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think. I'm not disagreeing. I just don't know.
No, I know that it was conceived for some kind of like a game show, like Tokyo Dream Show or something, some kind of like tech demo.
Yeah, I remember the Tokyo Dream thing.
Or whatever it was called, but that's where, like, I guess it became Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, I wish I could.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
The most unique game? Let's see.
I mean, Mario Sunshine's even pretty unique.
Yeah.
Ones go.
I still vote for Super Mario Land.
I don't want to give Sunshine any credit.
Keep talking. I'll be back. I'm not leaving because you're knocking Sunshine. So
Okay, yeah.
don't worry about that.
To match Sunshine.
Oh, wait, Trevor, come back.
Of Mario.
Well, he's gone. I'm gonna get really nasty on Sunshine. I did enjoy the little platformer sections where they took away the flood in Sunshine, and there was like the random floating blocks. But then that's essentially what Galaxy is now, like Galaxy and Galaxy 2. So I think those would be some of the more unique Mario games.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. What about Hotel Mario, or Mario's Time Machine?
Was that a licensed Nintendo game now, or they just licensed to use?
No, they just licensed out the characters. I just had to throw those games out there.
God, Mario Time Machine. I remember trying to play that, and I'm like 10. I don't know anything about history. I'm just putting in numbers and watching Mario surf and get mushrooms.
It's just like, what is this?
Is this the whole game? Whatever, let's surf again.
So I don't play Super Nintendo to learn. I've actually played. I own a copy of Hotel Mario, and it's weird because it's a terrible game, but like there's like this tiny like hint of like fun. Like they had like an okay idea for an arcade style game, but then they just like ruined it with all the stuff that they just slapped into it. You're going around like closing doors, and like to beat a level you have to close all the doors in the hotel, which is really weird.
Oh, you're talking about Hotel Mario?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's bizarre because like dodging the enemies and getting the power-ups and closing the doors. Well, yeah, it's a weird concept. It kind of works as an arcade style game and it's fun. But like the way like the game controls. Yeah, I got it too. There it is. the way I don't know. It's just they've ruined it with like the mechanics and it's just.
If I can interrupt for a second, I got I pulled up the Mario Wiki to check out the Doki Doki Panic stuff. So I'm gonna do some reading here.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was originally submitted as a prototype for Mario 2.
Okay.
And then it went to the license.
It says Doki Doki Panic Engine started as a Mario-style tech demo using vertical scrolling mechanics as opposed to side-scrolling mechanics. Shigeru Miyamoto suggested the inclusion of side-scrolling mechanics to make it more of a Mario concept. Nintendo entered a licensing deal with Fuji Television, and the game's development proceeded with Yume Kojo characters. Yume Kojo characters. Shigeru Miyamoto, as a result, was more involved with the development of Doki Doki Panic than he was in what eventually became the original Super Mario Bros. 2. So there you go.
Okay, so it's Fuji TV, not Tokyo Dream Show. I don't know where I got that from.
Well,
that's good to know, though.
Mm-hmm.
It does give some more context to it.
Yeah, that's good to know, because for years, Nintendo, originally, their sequels were always different anyway, like Zelda 2, Castlevania 2, I think, but for years, I think Mario 2 always had that kind of, well, it's not really a Mario game, and I think it's kind of good now that more info's come to light. Not that it matters to us, obviously, because we're game players, no matter what. But
Yeah.
like
I feel
Justin
like-
said, the context is good.
I feel like the inclusion of those Super Mario 2 characters in other Mario games helped legitimize that much, much more.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you can't say it's not a real Mario game and then have all these characters appear in later Mario games.
Mhm.
Obviously, Nintendo feels like that Super Mario Brothers 2 USA, whatever you want to call it, has a legitimate place in there.
Well, that's the thing is they actually re-released that game in Japan as Super Mario Brothers 2 America. So I mean, like it did have a legitimate release in Japan as well.
Yeah.
And the mechanics stuck around, like with 3D World. Luigi still has that high jump.
Yep.
Peach, Toadstool Peach still has that floaty thing. So
And
but
the
it
Blue
was-
Toad is back.
Yeah, it was cool that they legitimized it even more so in the new one. And Mario 3D World was awesome too. I mean, it's a unique game in and of itself, being the only multiplayer 3D Mario. But
Outside of the side scrollers, or outside of the new series, I guess, I kind of throw the new series to the side. They're all very, very unique titles in and of each other.
mhm.
64 is different from Sunshine, and it's different from Galaxy and Galaxy 2, I guess. And those are all different from Super Mario 3D World. They've just changed the formula so much. Even though they're all Mario games, they've taken what works and then they just completely rearranged everything else, and we get a unique experience again.
Mhm. I think that's what I love about Nintendo is that they're not afraid to experiment with their intellectual properties. I mean, Zelda, we've seen lots of different art styles, different types of gameplay. Same thing with Mario. I think that's really cool. I think Nintendo gets a lot of flack for just sticking to their IPs. I don't know why that's a bad thing, but I think, to Nintendo's credit, they usually add or, create new ways to play, new reasons to buy Mario games or Zelda games, or whereas I feel like there's other perennial franchises or other companies out there that do less in their iterations or sequels than what Nintendo does.
I think that's where people get confused. Is they think, oh, it's just another Mario game. It's not like another iteration of Madden, where it's the same thing with an updated roster. There's usually new mechanics or something. They make the gameplay fresh, and I think that's where people are wrong when they give Nintendo flack for sticking with their IPs. There's still a lot of innovation that goes on.
Oh yeah.
I think there's probably an element of jealousy, maybe, or it's used as a defense mechanism because you look at Sony, Microsoft, how many IPs, how many first-party products do they really have in comparison to Nintendo? It's a drop in the bucket. And part of that, Nintendo's been around longer, sure, but like Justin was saying, I think they do more with their properties in a positive way than Sony or Microsoft, do.
Mic drop.
Boom.
Well, I'm going to pick it up again because we need to keep the ball rolling here. What are you guys' opinion on the new Super Mario Brothers series? Because I thought that was the weakest part of Mario's lengthy career, I guess. Because it's new Super Mario Brothers. I got it. I played it. It was kind of fun. I thought the music was super boring, but that's kind of besides the point for me. And then they came out with New Super Mario Brothers. It was a New Super Mario Brothers DS, right?
Yeah.
New Super Mario Brothers Wii. New Super Mario Brothers 2, New Super Mario Brothers U, Super Luigi U. That's all of them, right?
Yeah.
And there's the one for the gold collecting one.
Yeah, that's
Because the Wii had a
Super
sequel,
Mario Brothers
didn't it?
2, right?
That's two, Margaret.
I thought the Wii had a sequel as well. Maybe I'm going crazy.
No, U was technically a sequel to the Wii.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm confusing then. They kind of blend together.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
that's probably the thing that I would say that they're maybe the weakest is I felt like we're talking about differentiation that Nintendo usually does with Mario games, but in the case of New Super Mario Brothers series, it does seem like not a whole lot changes between those different games. The DS one, the 3DS one, the Wii and the Wii U. Now, I would probably say that the Wii U packaged with New Super Luigi U is probably the most compelling of all of them. not just because it's an HD, but they did add a lot of fun new items and gameplay elements in there. I mean, some of the levels with the big rotating gears, and there's some really complex platforming in the Wii U one. So it's hard to totally discount them, but I do feel like that for the most part they are weaker in comparison to all the other Marios.
I think like for me, it was like when the DS one first came out, I was really excited to buy it, and I played it and I enjoyed it because I was like, oh, it's been such a long time since we've had a 2D Mario game. This is great. And then with the Wii one, it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. It's kind of the same thing, but there's multiplayer, and that kept it fresh enough. But then afterwards, it's like, okay, what's new here? Okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's what made Super Mario 3D World so great, is that it wasn't 2D Mario. It was like a 3D. It wasn't quite a 3D Mario, like a proper 3D Mario, but it wasn't like a proper 2D Mario, and it was just something completely different. And they just kind of ran with it. We got like new power-ups. The mechanics were a little bit different, and then their imagination took off on that one, and the challenge was still there. So 3D World definitely had like the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
I felt like 3D World too, Matt. It almost was like a good mesh of the 2D and 3D Mario. It seemed like a proper sequel, so to speak, to 2D Mario's. Like, hey, this is because really Mario 64 was a very big departure from the traditional platforming of the 2D Marios. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Mario 3D World feels more like a logical piece, if you will, between 2D Marios and the more traditional 3D Marios that we have now.
It feels like, when I think about it, it feels like what you think Nintendo would have done in the Nintendo 64 era had Mario 64 come out. Like, if you're like, a game industry thinker, back in the mid-90s, if that was a thing, and you think, whoa, we saw all these 2D Marios, what are they going to do with that? And you look at the PlayStation and what they're doing, and you're like, oh, I see it. There's going to be like a more of an isometric 3D kind of thing going on. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what, like, 3D World is, sort of. Like, that's, like, what you think would happen.
Yeah.
That's...
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that is sort of the case, because in an article I did a while back for the mag about some of the Mario games planned for the disk drive for the 64, and research in that was sort of Miyamoto's plan for Mario 64 too. Was you have Luigi in there, and then they were experimenting with 4 players, and whether it was the hardware or just the camera, or whatever, it wasn't feasible. But yeah, like you were saying, Matt, this is sort of a realization all these years later. Now that the tech is up to speed, and now that their experience, the growth they've had, it sort of realizes that. But I just wanted to touch back on the new series just for a second, and say that for me, even though, again, I think the gameplay, the control is perfect, pretty much. I really just would hope for more of that creative level design. There was one level, I think it was only one level in the U1 that looked like that painting. Had the colored skies. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's like Starry Night.
Yeah, I thought that was gorgeous, and I'm like, oh man, because it's new and fresh, and then you sort of go back to the more cookie cutter designs, and and they're not bad, but I think the fact that, like with Mario Maker, you can create, not just with the retro engines, but you can create with the new engines, kind of shows you, in a sense, that maybe there was that element of, I hate to say cookie cutter design because they're still well made, but I don't know what else to call it.
I don't know what you mean. Like, here's the ice world, here's the tropical world, here's the cloud world, here's the mountain.
Yeah.
Like we've seen all that before, so I can see where you're coming from with cookie cutter.
Yeah, and I feel like there was maybe a missed opportunity, and maybe they simplified the backgrounds so they could do 4-player more. But it seemed like the backgrounds, there wasn't that much depth to the new Super Mario Brothers games. Like, I mean, you guys have played Tropical Freeze, or even the Donkey Kong Country Returns. I mean, Tropical Freeze is gorgeous, and like, just look at all that Retro Studios was able to do with the background. I mean, it's a 2D platformer, just like Mario, gameplay-wise. But there's so much like just interactivity with the background. You're shooting into the background. You have all these different layers. There's even a lot of stuff, moving in the background. That even if you can't interact with it, it's there. Where in the 2D new Mario's, it's mostly flat. Maybe 2 layers, but really there's not much going on in the background. And maybe that was just to keep frame rate up for multiplayer, but I don't know. Donkey Kong, I don't know, set the bar for me as far as like what I wanted to see in a new proper 2D platformer, and I didn't see that as much in the new series.
I agree. And to keep this ball rolling here a little bit more, excuse me. Well, what do you think the future holds? What would you like to see in the next Mario title? Like, we have Mario Maker coming out, so everyone's crafting their 2D stuff. But what after that? What do you guys want to see?
Something 3D.
Yeah, I agree with Justin. Something 3D. I want to see something, but more closer to Super Mario 64. I want that open world explanation. Exploration on like a flat plane. Like,
Yeah.
Galaxy was so close to that for me, but what was the problem was, the long, or not the long jump was fun, but the spheres and stuff like that, the planetoids,
Mm-hmm.
and the camera, which is way above your head, like this is Mario's head and this is the camera.
Uh-huh.
Like, all of that, it made it felt so less, like, a little bit more stiff, I guess. I'm trying to come up with the right words to say it, like, more
It was
limited.
open yet somewhat linear at the same time.
Right. Well, yeah, and it was somewhat limited, too, because it's like, you had the path, and this is the path, and it goes to the star.
Mhm.
Or there's, like, a little side path, but that's usually just feeding a Luma, and that gets you another star. And the
Yeah.
challenges were fine, the platforming was fine, but it was very linear, and there's not much to explore in any of the planetoids or galaxies or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I definitely agree. Oh, you go ahead,
Well,
Alex.
sorry,
sorry,
I would say that it's definitely less immersive for sure. Having that camera way up here, you look like you're just more of an observer rather than interacting with the world like in Mario 64 gaming. Sorry.
I just want to see them experiment more with the idea that in Mario 64, you could select a star to go after, but then you could kind of change your mind about halfway through the level and go for a different one. I want to see them experiment more with that idea, giving you the option to change your route mid-level and go for something else through exploration. When you're first playing Mario 64, you don't know where all the stars are, but you may be going along a path to get to one, and you're like, oh hey, what's this one over here? Let me try to get this, and then all of a sudden you've gotten like a star instead of the first one you were going for. I would like to see them experiment more with that kind of exploration.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Like Matt was saying with Galaxy, I felt like you had the biggest world possible, the vastness of space, and yet we were kind of just shooting between, these little planets. So it felt like a tease in some ways for me. I know they've been hinting at Galaxy 3, but for me, I'd much rather see 64 or Sunshine type thing. Maybe even bringing it into some new environments, like we were talking about the original Mario Land there and Sarsaparilla Land or whatever. Imagine having that in a 3D environment. Rescuing Daisy or something. I mean, there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, like what if they did what Sonic Generations did, and kind of let you revisit past Mario levels, but recreate it in 3D.
That's a good idea.
That would be really cool, actually.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
You listening, Nintendo?
Yeah. I think they could incorporate a lot of elements from all the games too. Like, even if it's not a proper, Mario Galaxy 3, they could still please the Galaxy fans with, we always have like a Star Road in the 2D Marios. But what if you had like a Galaxy Road, or that was kind of like the final area of the world, and you kind of went up into this, you had planetoids or whatever, and the main game is maybe on a single planet, and you've got all this open world area to explore, but there was at least like some special world or something that was out in space that you could experience. I feel like they could combine them quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think that's the most we've ever been in agreement on this podcast episode.
Huzzah!
Yeah.
And
But yeah, I'm excited. I think it's I mean, we've got to hear something soon. I would imagine next year, if they're positioning a Mario game for the NX, I imagine we'll hear about new Mario next year.
I can't remember. I saw an article somewhere where Miyamoto was toying around with making another Mario Galaxy. So we might get another one of those.
It seems like they've been hinting at maybe for like NX.
Yeah.
Which would be cool, but I'd like something more. Or I was thinking even like some of the environments from like the Paper Mario games. Imagine if they had like those in a platformer.
Yeah.
There's just so much potential even within Mario's existing universe. It's not like they have to reinvent entirely new things. Just go back to some things that haven't been touched for very long or haven't been used in that particular way.
And Mario Galaxy is like perfect for that, because you could just write it into the story. Oh, Mario jumps through a wormhole and now he's in another dimension, and now he's going through the Mario Land on Game Boy, like fully created in 3D or something like that.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
That would be totally fine for a story. It's not like you
Exactly.
need an expansive
Now
plot.
I play it for the, yeah.
Yeah, no one's gonna go wormhole. Don't buy it.
This isn't canon.
You would have to be
It's impossible
careful
to survive.
and make sure that people don't think it's just like a 3D Mario, Redux, just all like old ones. Like, oh, it's got Mario 64 levels. They'd have to walk a fine line between nostalgia and people thinking it's like ports of old levels and new graphics, or whatever, remasters or whatever.
Well, that's what I think that Sonic Generations did really well, because you had the option to play the 2D levels, the classic ones, but then they recreated them in 3D for the modern Sonic, and vice versa. So you could play the stages as you remembered them, but then you also had a way to play them in a different way, which I think was really cool.
Yeah.
I think even just giving I'm normally hesitant to promote like just remaking games, but even if they gave an HD shine to 64 or Sunshine, like they did with Wind Waker, I think that would be I'm sorry?
I'm saying 64, not Sunshine.
Oh,
64. We're gonna do one.
I'd rather see Sunshine, to be honest.
But
I love Mario.
I think that would be a good way.
If you're gonna do Sunshine,
that would be
more levels.
Well, no, they can tighten it up, fix your Yoshi issues, maybe streamline the blue coins a little bit, maybe tap into some of that unfinished source code like Super Mario Sunshine 1.5. But it could be a good way too to gauge fan interest. If that's the type of 3D route they're looking for, because that's 64. Sure, are people content to have more Galaxy?
Yeah.
But see, the problem with the Sunshine HD and people thinking that they're going to add up like new levels or whatever is that that's essentially what we thought was going to happen when we heard the announcement of a Wind Waker HD. We thought, oh, they said they're going to fix some things, and we were thinking, oh, they might actually add a couple more dungeons, because you remember, Wind Waker was very short on dungeons. But they streamlined Triforce Quest, and they added that new cell, and those were good things. But I know a lot of us wanted new dungeons to explore. We wanted to see like this complete Wind Waker experience that was like hinted at like bits and pieces of the original Wind Waker, and
Yeah. And actually, they cut stuff because they cut the Tingle tuner. The whole quest with the Game Boy Advance cable.
The best part of the game. They just got rid of it.
So that's true.
out of
If they
10.
did, if they did do that. If they did do an HD port, which at this point in the Wii U's life cycle, I don't think that's probably going to happen, but it would probably be more of a straight thing. But in any case, I digress.
So Mario 64, make the good one.
Oh.
You can
Mario
love
64 HD remake, the good one.
you can love both games. It's not either or. I mean, you can like both. I do.
But if Sunshine was a good Mario game, then I would like both.
Justin or Alex, take over moderating duties here. I think Matt's getting a little.
Perma ban.
He's getting a little skyward sword on Sunshine.
I'm not. No,
Yes.
no.
Yes.
Shots fired.
I'm going to start muting some microphones here. Load up this control room. But we probably should close out this Koopa Cast because we're running about 45 minutes right now.
Mhm.
So I'd like to thank all of you panelists for joining me and talking about Mario. I'd like to thank our listeners for listening to both our video podcast and our audio podcast, which premieres the following day after the broadcast. So it's Wednesday night, and we're just finishing up our Koopa Cast Live. So Thursday at noon Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time, whichever time of the year it is. That's when the next podcast goes up on audio. And if you have any questions for us, you can always leave a comment in any of our Koopa Cast posts, or preferably the latest one. So you can always go to purenintendo.com and look for the latest Koopa Cast post. You'll see it there. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at podcast@purenintendo.com. If you'd like to check us out on Twitter, we love talking to our fans on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are right here on our Hangout little profile things. For
Well,
the
most
audio
of us.
listeners,
Yeah,
for most of us.
except for me.
For the audio listeners, I am at Purely Matt. Justin is at Purely Justin. Alex is at
Alex Shramke.
Yeah, at Alex Shramke.
I'm the odd
And-
duck.
No, that's good.
And Trevor Gould is at tgould86.
Grab G1.
Trev G1.
Wait, what's that for? Oh, for Twitter, yeah, it's Trev.
Trev
oh,
G1.
yeah.
Grab G1, yeah.
Is there an underscore? I don't even remember.
Yeah, Tristan's the Team Man 86.
That's right.
Mhm.
Why is he 86 again?
I think that was when he was born.
I thought he was the same age as me. I thought he was younger than me.
No, he's not that old. I'm older than he is.
Yeah,
by a year.
Tristan, I
He
think
had to be
is-
87. Not,
I was like,
I mean 89, not 87. He was probably born in 89.
I'm the grandpa of the crew.
So stay tuned for our next podcast where we talk about how old Tristan is.
It's sure to be riveting.
I think so. So until next time, we'll see you all later.
yeah.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.